Good afternoon, all. I am Indu Jain, Assistant Professor, IIMT College of Science and Technology. Today, our topic for live discussion is programmed instruction and its types. First of all, we know about the background of this programmed instruction. Programmed instruction was first made by Professor B.F. Skinner. B.F. Skinner took the experiment of Sidney and Presley as his basis. In 1920, Sidney and Presley created a learning machine by which a series of questions were presented to the students, and the students would know whether the answer was right or wrong immediately after answering the question. After getting the knowledge of their progress, students used to prepare with double the strength to go towards their set objectives. By this experiment, Professor B.F. Skinner created a self-learning material which today is considered the basis of this programmed instruction, or we can say that it is programmed learning. Skinner was the first to design a model of teaching learning. Now, we know about the programmed instruction. What is programmed instruction? Basically, programmed instruction is a learner-centered method, means child-centered method or student-centered method in which the text material is divided into small steps, or we can say that in small frames in a series and presented in logical sequence to the students, and they learn by themselves according to their own speed or their own pace. In this whole process of learning, the students are nurtured through the knowledge of their progress. Means students get knowledge of their progress at each step of the programmed instruction or programmed learning. Now, there are certain definitions which are given by different educationists. First, according to Smith and Pure, what is programmed instruction? Programmed instruction is the process of arranging a learning material into a series of sequential steps by which students are moved from their familiar background to the new and complex facts, theories, and concepts. According to R.C. Das, what is programmed instruction? Programmed instruction is a method of individualized instruction where each individual learns by himself at his own rate, at his own speed. Now we are trying to get the knowledge of this definition or the explanation of these definitions. On the basis of these above definitions, it can be said that programmed instruction or learning is that instruction in which the text material is divided into small steps and sequenced logically and presented to the students, giving the opportunity to learn by themselves at their own pace. Means, in this programmed instruction, students are provided with a small content or subject matter or teaching material by which the learner studies about the fact, theories, certain concept, and immediately after reading the content, he is provided with some questions, and students have to make the responses for those particular questions, and immediately after giving the answer to the questions, they get feedback or they get the knowledge about their answer is right or wrong. This is a method that does not require a teacher. Here in this method, as it is a learner-centered teaching or learning, There is no need of teacher at the time of this teaching learning process, but teacher is plays a very important role in framing the programmed instruction material. In this method, opportunity is given for learning in the form of individual instruction. In this, the students learn according to their own pace and also realize the attainment of knowledge. It is also considered a process of behavior change. As we know, the learning, what is learning? Learning is the change in behavior. And by behavior change, we can say that there is the process of learning is achieved. Now, there are certain principles on the basis of which this program instruction material is prepared. First one is principle of small steps. In this the principle of small step, the content of the program material is arranged in small steps and presented to the students in a logical sequence. On the basis of this principle, the student learns the subject matter easily and assimilated the text material. Second principle is principle of behavior analysis. These all principles are basically based on the psychological theories. So the second principle is principle of behavior analysis. Here, more emphasis is laid on practicality instead of theory, while dividing the teaching material into small terms so that the student can make permanent knowledge of that content. Next principle is principle of active participation. In principle of active participation, this if the student remains active while learning, then he learns more. After reading each frame, the student has to respond appropriately, so he or she remains active during the whole program. What is the next principle? Next principle is principle of immediate reinforcement. In this principle is based on the reinforcement theory. Reinforcement theory has the assumption that the student learns more by getting the positive reinforcement for the correct response. The next one is principle of logical sequence. Principle of logical sequence means all the content or the teaching material in the program instruction is arranged logically. Means it takes the consideration of all the teaching maxims like easy to difficult, simple to complex, known to unknown. So all the frames are arranged in a logical way so that students get the complete knowledge easily by their own. Next one is principle of self-pacing. What is principle of self-pacing? If the learner is given opportunity to learn at his own pace, then he learns more. The principle is related to the individual difference. Every individual has his own ability and speed to learn. What is the next one? Next one is principle of content validity. What is the content? Content is the subject matter which are provided in the frame or in small steps. This principle is based on the teaching objective. The frame of the program instructions are prepared so that teaching objectives can be achieved easily. What is the next principle? Next principle is Principle of student testing and progress knowledge. After studying one frame, the student has to give answers to certain questions. To move to the next frame or to the next step, on the basis of the number of questions that the student solves, he keeps track of the progress of his knowledge. In this way, this program instruction material is prepared on the basis of certain psychological theories. All the principles are made on the basis of this psychological theory. Now, there are two types of program instruction. One is linear programming and another one is branching programming. As you can see on your screen, in linear programming, there is a straight path from first frame to the seventh frame. In the at the first frame position, the student at its entering behavior, and at the last frame, or in this example, this is the seventh frame, student move to its his terminal behavior. Second one is branching programming. In branching programming, you can see there is a main stem or a main path from which certain branches are arises. These RF means remedial frames. Further, we will discuss in detail these two types of program instruction. First one is linear programming. The propounder of linear programming was Professor B.F. Skinner. This linear programming style is related to operant conditioning. Now, what is operant conditioning? Operant conditioning is related to the human behavior, in which human behavior is shaped through suitable reinforcement by providing suitable reinforcement to the responses given by the learner. Means the frame structure in linear programming is based on stimulus, response, and reinforcement. First, stimulus is provided to the learner, then he or she makes certain responses by answering certain questions given in the frame. Then reinforcement is provided to the learner after knowing their responses. In a linear program, learners' responses are controlled externally by the programmer sitting at a distant place. Not with the learner, but at far off places, the programmer control the responses of the learner. A linear program is called a straight line program, as the learner start from his initial behavior, or we can say that entering behavior to the terminal behavior following a straight line path. The student proceeds from one frame to the next until he completes the program. So all the programs are studied by the learner to reach to the last program. So what are the characteristics of linear programming? There's certain characteristics. First one is students are exposed to a small amount of information. There is not a very large amount of information. So here the learner proceed from one frame to the next in an orderly fashion, or we can say that in a logical sequence. So as the amount of information is small, so this is easy for a learner to achieve his objectives. The students respond overtly, that their correct responses can be rewarded and their incorrect responses can be corrected. Third one is students are informed Immediately means students are given immediate feedback about whether or not their responses or response is correct. Students proceed at their own pace, means self-pacing. Students proceed or move according to their speed, according to their ability. All are taken into consideration uh, before framing the program instruction. Now, what are the different features of this linear programming? Linear programming is very simple programming. Here, the frame consists of the content and certain questions, not more than 2-3 questions. The features of this linear program is, first one is linear means proceeding in a straight line or in a straight path. There is no here and there, simple a straight path. All learners pass through the same path. Responses are controlled by the programmer. Response is emphasized. It is very important in linear programming to give the responses to the questions to move further to the next frame. Here the feedback is quick. Immediate feedback is provided after each frame. Cheating is discouraged. There is no way of cheating in linear programming, as answer is not revealing to the learners. Learners proceed at their own pace, on rate, on speed, on ability. Uh, Further, learner can escape certain frames if the learners knows about the content matter of certain frame, then they can skip those frames. What are the advantages of linear programming? By seeing the different characteristics or different features of the linear programming, it is very easy to know the advantages of linear programming. First one is, it is based on experiment of operant conditioning, means behavior is taken into consideration before framing the program instruction or before preparing the program instruction. The whole program prepared through the small steps, which are called as frames, means different steps in linear programming are known as frames, and each frame, as I already discussed, that each frame consists of a small subtopic, a small subject matter, and 2 or 3 questions from the content matter. And third one is, each step decided by the program. Next, this program is well sequenced. Next one is, the whole topic is divided into small frames. Each frames contain at least one subject matter. Not very big. This subject matter is very small. Immediate feedback is the key factor. The main advantage of this linear programming is this immediate feedback to motivate the learner to move to the next frame or next step. There is a sign or clue or symbol available. It is just like this frame, just like a comprehension, where the small content is given, and from that content, certain questions are asked. In the given content, there are certain symbols or clues by which learner can easily give the responses to the questions. Next, very important advantage of this linear programming is, it is self-learning treatment or therapy. Means students learn by their own. Here, no teacher is required to give the knowledge of a certain concept. the main advantage of this self-learning is self-study is the best study. As we know, students uh, have the capability for self-study by uh, studying through this linear programming. Next one is, it is individualized program. Individual difference is taken into consideration while preparing this program. It is a student-centered program. It is based on behavior of a student, as it is mainly related to the or the main purpose of this linear programming is a change in behavior of the student. Next one is, it is based on the student's pace, time, and speed. Means self-pacing. It is very important. If the student learns slowly, then he can move from one frame to another frame slowly, or by taking sufficient time to understand a particular frame. And if the student learns very fast, then he or she can skip certain frames, and they can complete these frames very fast. There is no boredom for them. Further, there are certain limitations of linear programming also. First one is lack of motivation. Here, learning is just like reading, and learners feel it boring, and the objectives of these programs are not fulfilled. Sometimes it is boring. And next one is freedom of choice is curtailed. The learner has no choice of his own to respond, so here creative imagination of the learner is inhibited. It is costly affair too. Costly in terms of requirement of paper and time for its preparation. Blanks in key terms are guessed. Guessing work is there. In many programs, learners find out cues as to what is to be filled in the blanks, as certain questions are here in the form of fill in the blanks. Next one is, it can be used in limited areas, mean all the subject matter are not covered through these linear programming. Further, searching of material is not permitted. Here, uh, judgmental learning is not practiced. As in the textbook, there are a lot of matter, and students learn by searching a certain material in deep, but here it is not permitted. Students follow a rigid line prescribed by the program. Here, the students follow a particular path which is made by the programmer, or we can say that it is a straight line path, and it is a rigid path. All the learners have to cross this path. Based on learning theories which are formulated by experience conducted on animals. Human being is not an animal. Human being has a brain which has the capability to think, but all the theories on which this program instruction material is prepared are based on the animals or the experience. All experiences are experiments are conducted on the animals. No remedy is provided for wrong responses. If the learner makes some wrong responses, then there is no facility for simulation. These limitations are solved by this next type of programming, that is the branching programming. The founder of the branching programming is Norma A. Crowder. It is also known as Crowderian model. What is the meaning of this word branching? Branching means the subdivision of the stem or the trunk. The same concept is applied in the branched programming instruction style. The main concept, the trunk of the tree, is subdivided into smaller concepts, the stem of the tree. And further, again to other minute details of the topic, that is branches, Norman A. Crowder has given its definition as it is a program which adapted to the need of the students without the extrinsic medium. It is also called intrinsic because the learner within himself makes the decision to adapt the learning to his or her needs. The linear branching is, linear programming is also known as extrinsic programming, as the correct responses is provided to the learner after each frame. But in branching programming, it is called intrinsic because the learner reached to the right answer by making his own decision. Here, the internal motivation is provided to the learner. The rationale of the intrinsic programming postulates that the basic learning takes place during the student's exposure to the new material on each page. In branching program, the learning material is divided into different units of material. Here again, they are called as frames. Now the structure of frame, same, just like linear programming, the frames are prepared by the programmer itself. But in branching program, the frames of branching programming, much information, 1 or 2 paragraphs or even a page is provided in a frame. Thus, each frame is quite larger than that employed in linear program. The learner goes through the frame or goes through the matter provided in the frame. After that, he is required to respond to multiple choice question. Here the question provided are MCQs, which associate with the learning material of the frame. The learner moves forward if he answers correctly, but is diverted or is moved towards the branches to one or more remedial frames if he does not. If he made incorrect answers or incorrect responses, then he has to move towards the remedial frame. These remedial frames explain the matter afresh, ask him question to elicit the right answer and reveal his previous mistakes, and then return him to the original frame. This cycle goes on till the learner passes through the whole instructional material at his own pace. So this is much complicated program than the linear program. Here certain remedial frames are there. As we can see, the last limitation of the linear programming is no remedy is provided for wrong responses in linear programming, but in branching programming, remedial is provided after each frame to the learner. This is the great advantage of this branching programming. Here, there are two types of frame, content frame and the remedial frame. Each content frame includes the following. What are these? Repeating student response of the previous frame, then positive confirmation that his or her answer is correct. Now, new information questions related to this new information. Then MCQs, these questions are in MCQ form. Alternatives followed by page number. There are 4 alternatives, options. Option A, option B, option C, option D. If here the instructions are given, if you choose option A, go to page number this. If you choose option B, then go to certain other page number. If you choose option C, then go to page number given on this content frame. If you choose D, then go to next page. So here are certain page numbers where the student should go next. Next one is remedial frame. Remedial frame includes the following: a repeating student's response, then negative confirmation that your answer is wrong, because these are the remedial frame. Next one is reason why he is wrong. Means explanation to his answer given by the learner. Further explanation in simple language. More detailed knowledge about that particular question is given. And last one is direction as to where the student should go next. To the first page or the last page or to the next page. Next one is the features of branching programming. Material in a frame is large. Much information is presented at each step. There are multiple choice questions are asked. Here, learners has freedom to choose his own path of action according to the background of the subject matter. The learner controls the exact sequence that he will follow. Means here the learner has more freedom than a linear programming. The student is more alert and concentrate on the subject matter more carefully, as certain questions are asked after each content of study. Detection and concentration of errors is important. According to Crowder, that making error is basic to learning. जैसे हम बोलते ही हैं कि हम गलतियों से ही सीखते हैं. So making error is basic to learning. He permits 20% error in his model. In such a model, first the errors are detected and then corrected through remedial frames. The learner knows why he is wrong. Next one is the crucial and identifying feature of branching model is the fact that the material presented to each student is continuously and directly controlled by the learner's performance in answering questions. Next one is, as we already know, branching programming is intrinsic programming. Intrinsic program material, when presented in a book form, the book is here called the scrambled book because the pages do not follow in a normal sequence. It is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 to 7, 1 to 10. So there is not a normal sequence. Now, what are the fundamental principles of branching programming? Here, the first one is principle of exposition, means learners are exposed to certain new content or subject matter. By studying these subject matter, they give some answers to the particular questions. Now, why they make certain mistakes, this problem is diagnosed. So the principle of diagnosis. By knowing the reason of the problem made by the learner, remediation is provided to the learner So third one is principle of remediation. Now, what are the different advantages of branching programming? In this format, the student proceeds to the next frame until he makes an error. The errors branch him to supplementary material. Means by making errors, the learner knows more and more. The errors branch him to supplementary material designed to give him remedial instructions. The center of teaching learning process here is also the learner and not the facilitator or the instructor. So, learner is the main centered point of this branching programming. The learner learns with his or her own speed and pace. Here again, just like in linear branching, learner learns with his own speed according to his own ability. Next one is much of the learning takes place when freedom is given to the learner. Here, a learner is more free to learn according to his or her will. So, freedom provides him or her more learning. Learning is done when the new concepts are revised. So many supplementary materials provided. So, learning is more firm here. The learner gets responses given by the learner are not up to the mark. The learner can start learning the content from which he or she has not understood. Means learner can again start the program from the first frame. The correct responses are appreciated there by internally motivating the learner so that it is known as intrinsic programming to grasp the content till the end. Here again, there are certain limitations of this branching programming. The learner may guess the correct response without understanding the subject matter of the frame. This is the main problem of MCQs. Here, guessing work is there. Learner, without knowing the exact answer, he or she can guess the answer and maybe that answer is correct. So the objectives are not achieved through this guessing work. Second one is cost of preparation is high. Audio-visual equipment is costly. Again, here the preparation of branching programming is much more complicated, and so this is a very costly affair. The program needs revision after every 2 years, which is a very costly affair. Next one is programs are the product of programmer's imagination, and it is he who decides diagnostic questions and level of content. Here, learner cannot control the this type of programming. The whole control is by the programmer itself. Branching model can be used after 6th grade, the grade, because small children do not follow the mechanism. Next one is, it is very difficult to ask questions on the whole matter of the frames because the frames are too large and sometimes important subject matter is left for asking. It does not consider learning process, whether learning is taking place or not. Main emphasis is on diagnosing the weakness of the learners and providing a remedy to them. There is no sequencing of pages. Hazardous. Students find it difficult to follow the steps. Very confusing. He does not find it exciting or motivating, therefore he does not want to go through these pages. Sometimes it is so much confusing that it is useless for the learner and he leaves the program at that point itself. More emphasis on remediation rather than teaching, hence it is only a tutorial approach. Now, the difference between the linear and branching program is quite clear. The propounder of linear programming, B.F. Skinner, in 1954, and branching programming, Norman E. Crowder, in 1954 itself. It is based on operant conditioning learning theory. It is a response-centered approach of learning. But branching programming is based on configurational theory of learning. It is a stimulus-centered approach of learning. It is originated from, means linear programming is originated from psychological lab experiment of Bayesians. But branching programming is originated from semi-industrial situation with emphasis on efficient instruction to improve job performance, or it has originated from human training technique. This is the main advantage of branching programming. It is human-based training technique. Next one is, it is quite clear, the size of the frame is too small, but in branching programming, the size of frame is large. The frame structure has three aspects. What are those? Stimulus, or response, and a reinforcement. But in branching program, the frame structure also has three aspects, but are exposition, diagnosis, and remediation. Next one is, in linear programming, it has four types of frame. What are those? Introductory, teaching, practice, and testing frame. But in branching programming, there are two types of frames: home page and wrong page, content frame and a remedial frame. This strategy, linear programming strategy, is based on the theory of reinforcement, and in branching programming, the correct response is confirmed and approved to provide the reinforcement. Now, overall merits of the programmed learning. It is a well-programmed instruction and is a great thrust in the direction of individualized instruction, as it is adapted to the needs of individual learner in the class. Since a program requires continuous response from the learner, it overcomes the inertia and passivity on the part of the learner. The teacher can give explanation in the classroom. If the error is common, he may arrange individual conference on a specific point. The teacher plays very important role in program instruction by providing correction to their error, to the error of the learners. A well-programmed instruction is a great thrust in the direction of the individualized instruction. It is tailored to cater to the needs of individual students of the class. Basically, the program learning is based on the individual differences. It takes care of the individual difference of the learners. The introduction of program instruction is of great significance for developing countries which are set on the path of educating millions of learners and are short of teachers. Where there is shortage of teacher, these programmed learning material is very important to teach a large group of learners. Program instruction enables the teacher to diagnose the problem of the individual learner. Here are certain disadvantages of the whole programmed instruction or programmed learning. It demands specific skills to develop a good programmed material. Only very skilled programmer can prepare this programmed instruction material. Only cognitive objectives can be achieved. This is the very weak point of this programmed learning material or programmed instruction. Higher order objectives cannot be achieved through this programmed learning. Only cognitive domain of objectives can be achieved. Here, no face-to-face interaction is there in the between the teachers and the learners. So affective and cognitive objectives cannot be achieved through these types of program instruction material. Due to tight schedule of the timetable, students cannot be left to learn at their own pace. It would be very difficult to learn the content, the subject matter in a limited period of time. There is no chance for student creativity. Their responses are highly structured. Creative thinking of the learner is not judged through this programmed instruction. Next one is development of program is not economical in terms of cost and time. In the absence of a teacher, a student may spoil the discipline of the class, or they will be helpless when any problem arises. If there is certain problem arises during the learning of this program material, then no help is there by the teacher or by the programmer during that time. It cannot be applied at primary level of education. This program instruction material or learning is possible for the high level of education or for the higher classes, not for the small children. Thank you.